Okay, we're back over here on the Mack, and we're fitting the front grill shell and fender assembly up to the Ford frame horn. So what I'm going to do is take this 4x6 angle iron, well I guess it's more like 3x6, but weld it to the front frame horn, and then just drill a couple holes through that into that grill assembly and bolt it. To do that on both sides. Get this thing, get this thing off the jack stands finally. Yep. Look, Mom, no jack stands. Do what?
You can roll it back and clean this shit up now.
Yeah. See, done got caught again.
Yeah.
All right, we got our frame horns welded on there, I guess you would call them. Here and here, I've just got it spot welded. And then bolted through on this side and the driver's side. Worked out nicely. So I have to finish welding that up. But then we'll have to do some drop down brackets for the bumper. The bumper's a foot wide. Good grief, that puts the bumper right on the ground almost. We'll have to raise it up. Coming along though. So now she's all sitting on suspension. No jack stands anywhere. It can roll now. Very good, very good. Very good. Okay, back on the Mack. Mounting the brake pedal, steering column, fuel feed pedal. Hopefully, all today. Hopefully. Got the brake pedal mounted in there. It's a little far to the left. The owner of this vehicle, he's a left foot braker, so he likes his pedal to the left, but we could actually cut this arm and weld a brace over to get it a little closer to center, get it a little closer to the right foot. But that's kind of where that brake pedal or the brake needs to mount to the firewall to connect to the master cylinder, because we have our steering rod here that's going to have to come up through there somehow. It's got to have room for that. So that bracket mounts through to the master cylinder, which the master cylinder is hanging on the firewall now, and it should clear the hood. The hood basically goes from that point to that point, so that should clear the hood just fine. Okay, so we have the steering column mounted in there, welded some braces in, took some of the original mounting system out of the Ford and used it in here, just welded There's one brace right there, a hanger I welded in there, and then it's hard to see. Just take my word for it. Uh-oh, where are we at here? There's some more bracing up in there that I welded in hangers and then over to the floorboard. So it's in there. Nice, and I haven't bolted it down yet. It's just a little wobbly, but the hanger is welded in to the structure of the vehicle. So we got that. We got the brake in there, and now I guess I've got to figure out how to hang the throttle, where I'm going to hang it. So I'll have to do some kind of a drop down for that. It's coming along. All right, so we're in the wiring stages. Steering column mounted and getting it plugged in. Fuel pedal down here mounted, and it's plugged in. Fuse block under there hanging. Hopefully we can eliminate a lot of that wiring, but hopefully tomorrow crank it up and drive it out of here. Oh, I got to make the steering rod. Forgot about that. Which that's just a weld, and I just have to find the right rod. And then we still got to mount the park and brake, but we can drive it without the park and brake. Okay, so we're going to put in another day here on the Mack. Back on the Mack. Trying to get our floors somewhat fitted in, just so we got something to get our seats bolted to, or at least the driver's seat, and get a footrest here so we can operate the throttle. So I got to get this tied back together, because this was a main support rib in the floor system, but it's right on top of that transmission. So what I'm going to do is the piece that I put in here, the brace that I put in here, have a bend to it, so it'll go ahead and start raising that floorboard up on each side and just kind of get it prepared for a transmission tunnel. So that's what I'm going to do now, first thing this morning. What I'm going to do now is find the center point for that brace. So you got 23 inches, so that's 11 and a half to the middle. Is that right? I think that's right. 11 and a half. That's the mid point of that. I'm going to put a bend in it, so that put a bend in there so that sometimes I can't think and talk at the same time. Put a bend right there in the middle so that it will lift up those two sections of floor when I bolt it in. You don't need much. Hopefully I won't have to torch it. Thinking I should just be able to smack it a couple times. I don't know, it's pretty thick steel. Yeah, don't take much. So now that that's bent, we'll take it over here, lay it there. Yeah, that should work fine. I'll drill that through. See, that's got a thick brace under there, so I'll drill that through and bolt it in, and that will lift each side of that floor pan. Go ahead and set it up at a angle. Go ahead and get us a little hump started there. I could actually put a little more bend to it. I don't know. Let me think about it. All right, so we got that structure in. Worked out really nicely. It actually, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but it gave us a little hump there. Got us up off of the transmission. Pulled the two sides of the cab back together. Just give it a little more structure and just go ahead and start setting it up for a transmission tunnel. Okay, so I got the steering shaft out now, and we're going to lengthen it by cutting it here and adding a section to it. But this thing is telescopic, so we got to think about this rod sliding up inside of this rod. So we don't want to just cut it right in two without paying attention, because I don't know how far up in there it goes. We'll have to cut in there and look, because I don't want to cut through this rod as well. Once I'm done lengthening this thing, I want that to still be able to be telescopic a little bit. I mean, that just gives it some, you know, some cushion while you're driving. What we'll do is we'll take this old jack handle, and it's an inch inside diameter. This steering column is an inch outside, so this pipe will slide over. So when I cut this in half, we'll use a piece of this to join it back together and weld each end. Cut my hole there for the steering shaft to go through, but naturally I'm off a little bit. I'm going to have to make it a little bigger. Naturally, that's the way it goes. Alright, so about to weld the steering column. I've got the part that goes into the steering column itself inserted into the new extension tube. And what you have to do before you cut your shaft in half, you want to make a mark so you can get it lined back up properly. That's critical to how your steering wheel and everything's going to line back up. So I've got all my proper measurements and everything made. I'm going to weld this now, and then we'll put it back together. Okay, that's welded. A lot of times what I'll do when I'm doing something like this is, a lot of times your inner shaft will be a little sloppy, so I'll tape a couple rounds of tape on there just to fill in the void, and that'll usually get you close enough to centering up. Yeah, that fit in there pretty nice and tightly. So we'll weld that and get it installed. We will. We will. So now that we have this steering shaft extended, and it's pretty straight, so whatever, I mean, I've spun it and it looks really straight. Whatever intolerances I have, the U-joint will take that slack up, but I think I will drill a couple of holes in the pipe down lower and put a couple plug welds in there, just so it's got a little extra, not just on the tip up here, but down here too. Give it a little extra security, since it is steering, safety, you know, safety first. Okay, so I've got me a couple of holes drilled now through the outer tube into the inner tube. So what that will allow me to do is just get a weld in there and just a little extra weld down inside the tube itself. A little added security. Not that I didn't think that would hold. So I've got my plug welds filled, see? Just a little added strength there. Now we'll clean that up a little bit, maybe throw a little bit of paint on it, and then install it, and we'll have steering. Okay, there she is, installed from the gearbox on up through the column, or on up through the firewall to the steering wheel, and we have steering now. Good night. Look what was up under this truck. That's what happens when you build trucks, make messes.